The wind carried the scent of sage and dust across the mesa as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of fire. Liana knelt by the small fire, her fingers deftly weaving a basket from willow reeds, each twist a quiet prayer for her people. She was 16, with eyes like polished obsidian and a spirit that had already outrun the shadows of loss. Her mother song still echoed in her heart, though the soldiers had taken her family's camp 2 winters ago tonight. She waited for Tomas, the young vaquero who had stumbled into her hidden canyon months earlier, half dead from thirst. It was not Apache, but his kindness had bridged worlds she thought forever divided. Asumí que íbamos a estar solos, dijo la chica Apache cuando entraron los soldados. The word slipped from Liana's lips like a blade, sharp and unguarded, as the cañón's silence shattered. Boots crunched on gravel, and 5 men in faded blue uniforms fanned out, rifles glinting in the twilight. Their leader, a captain with a scar slicing his cheek, scanned the firelit scene, Liana, Tomas rising to his feet, and the basket half finished in her lap. The air thickened with the weight of old grudges and new fears. Liana's heart pounded, but she did not flinch. She had seen soldiers before, men who burned teepees and scattered families like ash. Yet Tomas, with his sun-browned hands and gentle laugh, had shown her another way. He had shared his water, his food, his stories of a mother who taught him to see people, not enemies. Tonight, they had planned to meet here, in this secret place, to trade tales and dreams under the stars. Alone. The word had felt like a promise, fragile but real. Step back, boy, the captain barked at Tomas, his voice rough as sandstone. This is Apache land, and Sis coming with us. Tomas froze, his dark eyes darting to Liana. She saw the tremor in his hand, the way his jaw tightened. It was no fighter, only a ranch hand who loved poetry and the open sky. But something shifted in him, a spark catching in dry grass. Sis not your prisoner, he said, voice steady despite the fear. Sis just a girl. Liana's breath caught. No one had ever spoken for her like that, not since her father fell to a cavalry bullet. She stood slowly, the basket tumbling to the dirt. Her moccasins pressed into the earth, grounding her. I stay, she said in Spanish, her voice clear as a hawk's cry. The soldiers laughed, a sound like breaking branches, but the captain's eyes narrowed, measuring her. The canyon was her home, its red rocks her ancestors, bones. She knew every crevice, every shadow. If she ran, she could vanish into the night. But Tomas would not. His horse was tethered a mile away, and these men would hunt him for sport. Liana's mind raced, weaving a plan as deftly as her basket. Kindness, she thought, was not weakness. Her mother had taught her that, even as soldiers tore their world apart. Captain, Liana called, stepping forward. The soldiers tensed, fingers on triggers. You retired. Hungry. Sit. Eat. She gestured to the fire, where a small pot of rabbit stew simmered. It was meant for her and Tomas, a quiet meal to seal their fragile trust. Offering it now felt like baring her throat, but she saw them in scorned faces, the dust in their beards. They were far from their fort, chasing ghosts in a land that did not forgive. The captain hesitated, suspicion warring with hunger. That's your game, girl? No game, Liana said. Just food. You take me, you still need strength. Eat first. She held his gaze, her chin high, though her knees trembled. Tomas stared at her, awe and terror mingling in his eyes. One soldier, Jangir, with a boyish face, lowered his rifle. Smells good, Capene, he muttered. The others shifted, uneasy but tempted. The captain spat into the dirt, then nodded. 5 minutes. 10 Cesars. They sat in a rough circle, the fire crackling between worlds. Liana ladled stew into tin cups, her hand steady though her heart screamed to run. Tomas sat beside her, silent but close, his presence a tether. The soldiers ate greedily, their rifles across their laps. Liana watched them, searching for cracks in their armor. The young one, Private Alice, kept glancing at her basket, its half-woven pattern catching the firelight. You make that? He asked, voice soft. Liana nodded. My mother taught me. Each reed carries a story. Alice looked away, ashamed or thoughtful, she couldn't tell. The captain slurped his stew, but his eyes never left her. Your people don't belong here anymore, he said. Government says so. Liana's fingers curled into fists, but she kept her voice even. This land was ours before your government had a name. You take, but you don't own. The words were bold, reckless, but they spilled out like water from a cracked clay pot. Tomás tensed beside her, but she felt the soldiers' surprise. They expected a scared girl, not this. The captain leaned forward, his scar twisting. You got fire, ella give you that. But fire don't stop bullets. No, Liana said, meeting his gaze. But it warms hearts. Even yours, maybe. A few soldiers chuckled, uneasy. Aegis looked down, stirring his stew. The moment stretched, fragile as a spider's web. Then, a distant howl, a coyote, or something deeper, echoed through the canyon. The horses whinnied, and the soldiers jumped, rifles raised. Liana seized the distraction. She grabbed Tomás' hand and whispered, now. They bolted, two shadows darting into the maze of rocks. Gunshots cracked behind them, sparks in the dark. Liana knew this land like her own heartbeat. She led Tomás through a narrow crevice, its walls scraping their skin, then down a dry arroyo where mesquite claws snatched at their clothes. Her lungs burned, but she did not stop. Behind them, the soldiers' shouts grew faint, swallowed by the cañón's secrets. They collapsed in a hidden alcove, stars peering through a slit in the rock above. Tomás gasped, his hand still in hers. You're crazy, he whispered, but his eyes shone with something like pride. Crazy keeps us alive, Liana said, her voice shaking. She thought of the stew, the basket, the moment she chose to feed her enemies. It had bought them time, maybe more. But the soldiers would not stop. They never did. Dawn painted the canyon gold when Liana and Tomás crept back to the camp. The fire was cold, the basket gone, but hoofprints told a story. The soldiers had left in a hurry, spooked by the night or their own doubts. Liana's heart lifted, then sank. She was free, but for how long? Her people were scattered, her home a target. Tomás, though, would be hunted now, a traitor to his kind. We can't stay, Tomás said, reading her face. But we can choose where to go. Liana looked at him, this boy who had crossed a desert for her. She thought of her mother's words, kindness is a seed. Plant it, and it grows where you least expect. She had planted it last night, in a pot of stew, in a defiance that spared lives. Maybe it would grow. South, she said. There is a village. My cousins there. They had us. Tomás nodded, no hesitation. Then we go together. Their journey was a trial of dust and thirst, of nights under relentless stars. Liana taught Tomás the Apache words for water, for hope. It taught her a Spanish poem about a bird that sang through a storm. They laughed, they cried, they stumbled, but they kept moving. Along the way, they met others, reneguas, dreamers, souls bruised by a world that divided them. Liana shared her food, her stories, her unyielding belief that humanity could stitch itself back together, one act at a time. In the village, Liana's cousin, Nisoni, embraced her with tears. The people there were wary of Tomás, but Liana vouched for him. It's my family now, she said, and they listened. Tomás worked the fields, his hands calloused but willing. Liana wove baskets, each one a testament to the night she chose compassion over fear. Word spread of the Apache girl and the vaquero who defied soldiers with a bowl of stew. Some called it a miracle, others a legend, but Liana knew it was just a beginning. Years later, when peace talks flickered like faint stars, Liana stood before a council of Apache leaders and USE officials. She was no longer a girl, but a woman with a voice that carried the cañón's strength. I fed your soldiers once, she said to the new captain, a man who had heard the stories. Not to weaken them, but to remind them we're all human. Hunger, fear, ope, we share them. Stop fighting the land. Start sharing it. The captain, older now, with no scar but a heavy heart, listened. He remembered Private Alice, who had deserted after that night, haunted by a hill's courage. He remembered the stew, the basket, the moment he almost lowered his rifle. Change came slowly, like water wearing stone, but it came. Treaties were signed, not perfect, but steps toward something better. Liana and Tomas built a home on the mesa's edge, where sage grew wild and the wind carried their children's laughter. They taught them to weave, to sing, to see the humanity in every face. The night in the canyon became a story they told by the fire, not of fear, but of a choice. Liana would touch the scar on Tomas' arm, a grace from that night, and smile. "We thought we'd be alone," she'd say, "but we found a family. The world is vast, its wounds deep, but kindness is a spark that can light the darkest canyon. Plant it, nurture it, and it grows, across borders, beyond hate, into a future where no one assumes they must face the night alone." Liana's basket, finished years later, hangs in a museum now, its reeds telling a story of a girl who fed her enemies and changed the world, one bowl at a time. Word count, 3,000.